Hey guys, it's Malthal here once again, and today I'd like to show you the character I made in the past few days while messing around with my first ever Mjolner. Mjolnir. Mjol... Mjol... Thunderhammer stick. So this is the first time I've ever tried to make a build for Mjolnir or played with Mjolnir itself. And the reason behind that is typically the builds that people have made and I've seen just didn't look fast or enjoyable enough, since it was a lightning strike playstyle and kind of a molten strike thing, and just not as much damage scaling as I'd like, unless you go with a Vol's Devotion and Discharge. As you all know, the Mjolnir itself did lose 20% lightning spell proc rate on hit, and that's made it quite a bit less popular in the past year, as well as the fact that it just doesn't really keep up in clear speed to some of the other more exciting and fast-paced builds these days. What I've made with this build though is linked two arcs and built around an Inquisitor crit style Mjolnir character. I thought long and hard about how I would like to build Mjolnir, and originally I really wanted to go with Spark and not Inquisitor and all sorts of other things, and it's just so hard to justify something like Spark, for example, because you need quite a few supports to make it feel good. You need increased duration, pierce, faster projectiles, or at least, a lot of scaling in those areas, which is hard to get when you're running a Mjolnir. And you also need penetration if you're not using Inquisitor. It just became a bit of a headache, so I landed on Inquisitor Arc. And as you can see here, it clears extremely effectively. Its character at this point is something like level 85, and this was my first Gorge run that I jumped into. Currently I'm using two level 20 arcs, and I have the Chain Helm enchant, which provides me in total 10 arc chains. Meaning, in general, I have to spin over the top of like a monster somewhere on the screen, and pretty much the rest of the screen gets chained as long as I crit. And I have about 50 crit, and I use a Diamond Flask, so more often than not I am critting. And since I'm an Inquisitor, whenever I crit, it completely ignores lightning resists and cold resists, because I'm also using a Call of the Brotherhood to trigger freezes just as much as shocks, because I do need that as my defensive mechanic. So far so good. The build is working out pretty well. And this was around a low level 80s here, where I did one of my first Porjo runs, and ended up just pretty much steamrolling the place, thanks to all of those chains, all of those freezes, and it performed much better than I expected it to. Because Arc is supposed to kind of suck when it gets to larger packs, as you're not really using an AoE anymore. You have to chain through every single monster. If they're not dying, you're chaining a lot, you're not hitting some monsters, and it becomes kind of problematic. But over here, I'm either one-shotting monsters or chaining 10 times, which is a lot, with two different arcs, meaning I do end up freezing a lot of the screen or just clearing a lot of the screen quite efficiently. Now, the character does get a lot better from this point on. This is currently level 80, low 80s I think, and we still do have quite a lot of life, few defenses, and DPS to gain, and the character is also fairly malleable in how you want to build it. If you want more life, you can certainly get a lot more. If you want more DPS, you can build towards that. And if you want to use some other spells, that's also pretty doable. But for my money, when I've been trying out all different spells, I've landed on two arcs attached to a life leech as my current main setup. In this run, just from half a clear right here, I think we end up hitting the most XP I've ever seen from a Porjo's or from any character, and that happens to be 1.1 billion XP per hour, just for the brief period that is that run. Now, here's an example of something else that is also fairly effective, and that's replacing one of the arcs with a Shock Nova. So then I'm running one arc and one Shock Nova, and that feels very effective as well. I'm not really sure which one's better. Overall, it doesn't feel like there's too much of a difference. Shock Nova will perform better when there's a lot bigger packs, but the 2 arc chains just feels really good to me. So I've more or less decided to stick to the 2 chains, or the 2 arcs, for all that chaining goodness, just because it's very satisfying and does seem to clear very nicely as well. Like I said, I don't think there's a right answer, but Arc and Shock Nova seem to be the go-to spells. Spark requires kind of too much investment. Stormcall, also too much investment and a bit too slow. Or Lightning, don't even talk about it, doesn't exist. And lastly, for the build, I've also been using what we have dubbed the Thunderdome. It's nothing new or exciting, but it's basically Vile Spark with a Vile Glacial Hammer setup. So what you do, you Vile Glacial Hammer, it traps all your sparks in, they bounce off the walls, and they kill lots of boss health. As I said though, that's not really anything too new, and it's not even that effective a setup. It's just mostly used because single target on this isn't that special, since we are cycloning and not molten striking, because I don't really have room in my setup for that. So my single target isn't incredible, but it does get the job done. And when I can, I employ the use of a Vile Spark, Spell Echo, increased duration, attached to Vile Glacial Hammer, just for the increased duration. And you pop your Vile Glacial Hammer, you pop your Vile Spark, everything bounces off inside, and if it's a crit Vile Spark, it will be an incredible amount of damage. And currently, when I have my power charges up, Spark will have about 50% crit, so it's a 1 in 2 chance. A bit higher when you're running a Diamond Flask. Now, character right now is level 88. It's a Templar Inquisitor called Worst Mjolnir build ever. There'll probably be more of an in-depth guide to this, maybe in a couple days if I feel it's necessary, but I'll give you a quick rundown of what's happening here. Inquisitor, as you all know, Inevitable Judgment, absolutely amazing. Whenever you crit, ignore elemental resistances. So that's the main source of our damage and crit viability. You have this Augur of Penitence. It's a flat 10% damage increase for your elemental, which is also very useful. Besides that, you just basically make a pretty regular crit caster tree. I got quite a few AoE nodes just to help my Cyclone range and Herald of Ice explosion radius. You get plenty of crit nodes. Those here, these here, and those here. Do a fair amount of traveling and try and fill out some stats like Strength. Strength is the bulk of the hard stat to get because Int is extremely plentiful on this top end, and you only need 300 Int. So we have to get a bit of strength on the tree, and also plenty of strength from gear. So the strength there, 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 there. And I just swapped into a 6-link Astral to also get a lot of strength. But up until now, I was using a Carcass Jack. I don't think there's a right answer for a chest at this stage. It is entirely up to you. You can use a Carcass Jack, you can use an Astral Plate, you could use a Belly of the Beast, a Lightning Coil, whatever you really want. I just went with an Astral so I could free up some strength elsewhere. Besides that, as I mentioned, 2 arcs and a life leech. I do have Vile Pact so that I can become Reflect Immune and Insta Leech. My current 6-link on the Cyclone is Cyclone. In order of importance, I suppose I should say Cyclone, Blood Magic, so I can reserve 100% of my mana with Wrath, Herald of Thunder, and Herald of Ice. Cyclone Blood Magic, probably Fortify, then I'd go faster attacks, then additional accuracy, then increased area. And with all that, I have 89% accuracy, up to 90% with the Golem. Arc crit chance, like I said, should be about 50% with power charges. Get rid of this arsehole. With the power charges, I gain them from Herald of Ice, Curse on Hit, Herald of Thunder, Assassin's Mark. Since this is going off all the freaking time, you are getting your power charges pretty much 100% of the time. When you want to attack fat single target bosses, you can sub out your increased area for power charge on crit, and that will help you sustain your power charges. Not much else to say. Running Vile Haste. I'm still figuring this character out a bit. Do have a Call of the Brotherhood ring. That splits my damage on arc in 2, so as you can see, Arc does half lightning, half cold, and it's quite a chunky amount of DPS as well. With full charges, full frenzies and all that, I'm running something like 24,000 DPS according to this shit, which is pretty damn substantial compared to my previous cast on crit characters. Anything else I need to mention at the moment? Silver Flask for Onslaught, Diamond Flask for Crit, Quicksilver for riding around pooning noobs, and an Series Flask just for extra chaos, as well as some Leech. Tried to get plenty of crit multi, running a Rat's Nest for movement speed, attack speed, crit. Arc chains an additional 2 times, so as you can see, Arc currently chains 10 times, which is a lot. Chill Sockets, just plenty of damage, life, whatever you can get. Mostly damage. Mostly damage. That is the Mjolnir character so far. I will be playing it up until probably low level 90s. It's not a great at Siri character, as you could imagine. You'd have to sub out your arcs for something else, and that causes problems. So I haven't really even taken it to its Siri yet, because I just don't want to. I may eventually though. Yeah, Mjolnir is actually still pretty goddamn good, even without a Vol's Devo, and just as a pure arc setup. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little look into the character, and I'll see you guys next time.